what bothers you more here? The fact that a secret recording is made by one attorney of another attorney, or what is actually said on that secret recording?
Definitely what was said on the recording. I mean, it's a good thing that we have a recording, because otherwise it would have been a he said, or he said, she said. And I'm not really clear, honestly, if this was completely secret. I know he was talking about the phone being visible to everyone, and at some point might have been on the table. But putting that aside, what the prosecutor is doing truly bothers me as a criminal defense attorney. I mean, the one thing you don't want a prosecutor or anyone to do is to unduly influence a material witness in a case, and that's exactly what he's trying to do. He's trying to get the witness to buy into his theory and cooperate with him and basically say what he'd like. He's trying to influence a witness, and that's not what a prosecutor is supposed to do. A prosecutor represents the people, represents everybody, including the defendant in reality, and they're supposed to ensure that the process is fair, that the defendant, just like anyone else that's participating in the proceedings, that the defendant gets a fair trial. And when you're trying to influence a witness, we all know that that defendant is not going to get a fair trial, and he's creating issues in this case. I mean, later on, depending on what happens with the case on appeal, this is something that can be raised later. Why take chances like that? Why not play it straight?
So, Michael, the attorney for Vallo's sister who made the recording told Mark Means, Lori Vallo's attorney, about it. Put yourself in his shoes. Someone gives you that recording. Would you be as aggressive as these defense attorneys are being? Is there another approach you would take? What would you do?
I think that they're absolutely taking the right approach here. I think that you could even take it a step further. I think later on we might see some motions to suppress. If any of these witnesses come forward to testify at a later point, I think they're definitely tainted witnesses. I mean, you have a prosecutor here who's not just relaying facts of the case, but he's arguing the case to them. And he's influencing how they're going to testify at a later point. He's talking about faith. He's talking about the death penalty. There's all sorts of undue things that are going on in this conversation. And thank God it was recorded. Because if it wasn't, we wouldn't have any idea of, exactly what was said and how it was said. And if it wasn't recorded, we would have just had to go off this one attorney's word. But now that it was, we can see exactly what this prosecutor was saying to these witnesses. And it becomes a question of how far has he taken it outside of what was recorded, outside of what we do know. And that's a very scary thing.
So, Lara, my question to you now is there are going to be other witnesses in this case, right? So the other ones probably didn't record any conversations that they had with investigators or with the prosecutor, or maybe they are, I'm not sure. Is there anything else, any other repercussion from this that could impact other witnesses and evidence in this case?
Of course. I mean, it's going to impact the credibility of any witness. You're going to, if a jury hears any of this, they're going to start wondering what the investigators or the prosecutor, if the prosecutor got to interview these other witnesses, what this prosecutor told the other witnesses, how much of an influence he had on their stories, how much of their stories is really shaped by his theory and his pushing his idea of what is the truth in this case. Of course, it's a huge, huge problem. I mean, I have to admit, I mean, it's a great thing for the defense to have, regardless of what happens with their motion, regardless of what the judge decides. Like you said, there are going to be some lasting repercussions. It's gonna make every other witness look like they were potentially unduly influenced by the prosecutor.
All right, when we come back, go ahead, Candace, finish up.
Well, Vinny, I just wanted to say that if the judge does decide in the favor of Rob Wood, well, then he should have other people do this type of work so that he keeps himself out of the equation. And that really is going to be the best solution if things are decided in his favor. Yeah,
and that was the strange thing about this, because he had investigators with him. So this was like the introduction before the interview, but it got very substantive. So it's like the interview. It was really, I've never heard anything quite like it. When we come back, we're going to hear more of it.
A meet and greet.
Exactly. Yeah. Exactly. All right, when we come back, we're going to listen to more of the recording, because some other things were revealed by the prosecutor, things that were never said publicly before, and gives us a better idea of their perspective of the overall case involving the death.